Good evening, Auburn, and welcome to Monday, July 29, 2019, Auburn Board of Health. Thank you for calling me. So I'd like to do a call to order, and I see next on the agenda is reorganization of the board.
And so if you are okay with it, we can wait till we have all three members here.
Yes, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll do that for the August meeting. And
We have our agenda. Is there anything you'd like to add or remove from
Sure.
tonight's agenda?
so the minutes that you have are going to be the April 22nd minutes. The May 13th minutes, we just have, I think there has to be a modification, so we just have to check those with the clerk. So we'll put those on for next time. And if I may,
Yes.
I would like to introduce, we have a new
Yes.
member of the Department of Development and Inspectional Services team. We have Colleen Hines. She's our new
Welcome.
solid waste and recycling coordinator.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
Started just about 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
So she's just learning the ropes, and we thought this was a great time to have her come to a meeting and see how we would comment and review plastic bag bylaw. And then, of course, we have Animal Control Officer Amy Contois, Eileen, Dyson Alexander, and Jordan Russo.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Came in late on this meeting,
Yes.
so it's just as well table the vote on this so that Eric, who was here on the first half of the meeting,
Sure.
because I don't feel that I could move to accept them when I wasn't here. in the first
Okay,
section.
that makes
Okay.
sense.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, all right, so we'll put for now.
Yeah, we'll put both of those, and then we should have
Yeah.
a set of minutes here too. We'll put them on for August.
Okay. Next was the discussion of the bylaws for the
Sure.
plastic bags.
So you have, we have a proposed bylaw. The proposed bylaw is from the town manager's office, and there's a general bylaw amendment, and you have the draft for the town of Auburn. So it is for single-use plastic bag reduction, and the bylaw is intended to be reviewed by the boards. There's already been some review from other boards and committees, and we wanted to bring it to the Board of Health as well for any comments. I know that we have, I think it's the beginning of September that we have to have comments back to the selectmen, so we don't have to feel like we have to get it all done tonight, but I figured at least it would allow us a chance to take a look at it,
Okay.
and then we can finish up any comments if you'd like in the August meeting and finalize anything.
Thank you.
But it at least allows us to get a discussion going. I think that just a little bit of history, as you may or may not remember, we had a discussion, a brief discussion about a proposal. It's been a little bit, I'm gonna say at least a year, probably more. And it was proposed at that time to possibly look at a plastic bag reduction. And at that time, I believe a lot of the sentiment of the board was to see how this would impact staff. So We know that any bylaw that's going to be put in place for this, it's actually identified that the enforcing authority may be the Board of Health, and the designee. And so we want to make sure we understand, if this were to go through for town meeting and the town supported having a bylaw, just how that we would implement that at the Board of Health level.
Wasn't there a valid question?
There was, yep, great segment.
Yeah.
So there was a
Yeah.
referendum ballot question, and it was non-binding. It was basically just to get the pulse of what the town was, like which way you felt about it. And it was overwhelmingly towards
Yeah.
support of having a plastic bag reduction bylaw. So I think that people are open to it, and I think through that process, it's kind of a step-by-step. So the pulse is that people are favorable towards it, and this would be a proposed draft. If there's something that you would like to provide comment, we can certainly take the comments. We can see if it makes sense. Do things need to be tweaked? There are some things that I think that we have looked at, and just, again, doesn't have to be nailed down today, but
The selectmen are passing this bylaw?
this would go through the town meeting process.
Okay.
So the selectmen are proposing the bylaw,
Okay.
and then that process would go through the town meeting process. So it would go as a warrant,
Okay.
which is different than if the Board of Health were to do a regulation. Obviously, we've done some regulations in the past. Kind of in the same venue. We did a mandatory recycling regulation. We did a donation box regulation most recently. So there's a lot of layers,
Right.
but this would be a bylaw, not a regulation.
Okay.
So we can certainly look at it. You can, we can go through and see what your thoughts are. And that,
Would the original referendum question, the ballot question, be still available on the town website, or do we have access to that?
what do you mean?
At the polls, what I remember voting on the
Yeah.
particular question.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what is the exact wording of the question, and was there an explanation, pros and cons?
I don't
I
think
don't
there were
think there
pros and cons on it,
Okay.
but I think,
Just the generic statement
Yeah,
on
and
the
I think
ballot?
kind of more to like explore and move forward with the proposal is what my
Yeah.
thought
okay, so
was.
the referendum question was non-binding.
Right.
And it read, in order to promote the reduction of thin film, single-use plastic bags in the town of Auburn waste stream, should the town of Auburn research and develop a general bylaw that restricts the use of thin film, single-use plastic bags by retail establishments within the town. And then parentheses, with the potential of some exclusions such as meat, fish, produce, and/or dry cleaning bags, end of parentheses. So that was the wording.
Okay, the very plain, very simple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so when I'm,
Basically what you-
when I'm looking through this, I'd like to keep that in mind, having that non-binding referendum question supported. Obviously, we don't want to go off in some, this was our regulation, we would not want to go off on a tangent. We would try to keep to the core of that.
But I mean, I do think that it's okay, you can certainly comment and make suggestions. They don't necessarily have to be accepted by the Board of Selectmen. But they're certainly, it would be the time to make comments, whether or not you think that something should be changed or modified or maybe added, you can certainly do that.
I guess,
And again, is it going to come down to the board's, Board of Health, your responsibility for policing this?
Right, and
So
so,
I think it's very important that we have some very clear input. And again, what the selectmen and what the ultimate town meeting members vote on is what they vote on.
Sure. Absolutely.
I guess one of the questions I had, like when it mentions enforcement, do you know at this point, would there be regular inspections, or is it just if you happenstance heard that, of a complaint? Like how would that work versus?
Well, I think we've talked about once the regulation, once the bylaw is intended to move forward, how that would look. We know that there's going to be definitely a time where we're going to have to do education and visiting the stores. I would say part of the good information that we have already is that we are in a lot of the food establishment stores at least. And we kind of, I guess the easiest, the supermarkets that we're in, that a lot of their business would be applicable to us. So we already have some groundwork where we know we have to look at those stores. It's the rest of the stores and how they operate and what type of bags they offer, I think is some of the unknown that we still have to get information on. But this has, there has been a lot of input, I think, too, from the business community. So, they would have input on this as well. So to try to get as much information from people as what they would like to see, and then, us on our end figuring out how that moves forward. So there's a period of time where you'd have to educate, you'd have to give people a chance to know what the requirements are, and then how to bring them into compliance over a period of time.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we had discussed was kind of, I think it kind of relates to everything that we do, and having the department be under one umbrella for inspectional services and development is we deal a lot with solid waste concerns. And I mean, even today, and Colleen were out in identifying concerns of somebody's toters not getting picked up, and then going out and seeing when the toter is full of recycling, but they're in plastic bags. So just dealing with that and trying to see how that would relate, that would be a reason that we want to kind of tie this. We're dealing with solid waste concerns, and we already have existing regulations in place. Having a plastic bag bylaw would support what we're doing on the solid waste and recycling end. Obviously, the contamination to the environment, the litter, everybody driving around, you see bags blowing around, you see stuff in the trees. We're not exactly near the ocean, but it always, it's concerning. We have a lot of water bodies in town to see plastic bags in water bodies. So those would be, some of the purpose and intent for putting a ban like this in place. So I think tying that and highlighting that. Talk about under the definitions, clarifying what a single-use plastic bag is. I know, whether or not you call it a single-use bag or a retail bag or a checkout bag, identifying what that is. I think they're identifying specifically in this regulation draft, less than 3 mils in thickness, so some of those real thin paper bags. I think it might also be helpful to actually bring in bags to see what exactly 3 mils, how thick that is.
Like if they have price range, that's greater than 3 mil. The ones that you pay
Right, the
10
5 cents.
Yeah, 10 cents for, that's greater than 3 mil.
So there's also, just identifying what 3 mil is, and then what less than 3 mil will be. So having some sample bags. We also have, tied in as well some education regarding reusable bags. So we do, right now, we are researching and getting an order of reusable reusable bags to try to bring awareness for people to reduce their consumption of plastic bags. I mean, some people are religious about going to the supermarket and bringing their own bags. Just to raise awareness. I think the more you go to fairs, you go to town functions. We've already brought some of those to, I think, the senior clinic, the senior fair, where we had reusable bags. We put some education in them. It helps people when they have a bag. You have it in your, if you have it in the car, you're more apt to use it when you're running into a store. So trying to bring some education and awareness about that. Maybe using some of our grant money to be able to get an order of those. So that's in process right now. So it kind of ties in as well. So there are some specifics in the regulation for compostable plastic bags, and what standard that needs to meet. It seems that the ASTM, the D6400 seems to be kind of consistent throughout a lot of the regulations. So that wording we have seen in other drafts. The marine degradable bag, that's also a standard. So again, just maybe having samples, I think might help to make sure that everybody's aware. So that might be something that we can try to at least get samples of those bags and maybe bring them to the next meeting. You might be able to, get something like that so the board can see. I think it's probably easier to feel them and see them. That way you can kind of say, okay, yes, no, maybe so. So the regulation doesn't prevent anybody from bringing their bags into the establishment for their own use. Obviously, we're encouraging that. And it doesn't prevent a retail establishment from using the product bag. So when you go to, say, fish market, and they give, you have to get fish in some sort of bag that's going to hold it so it's not dripping on everything. Food bags, product bags, such as that, it would prevent a retail establishment from using single-use plastic bags as it's defined in the regulation. And then this identifies whether or not you'd want to charge a fee for it. Any bags by retail establishments, either free or for a reasonable fee. Right now, I think, as Eileen mentioned, there are certain markets that you can go to. They may not offer a free bag to you, but you can buy like a heavy-duty bag for, say, 5 to 10 cents. So whether or not you'd want to see a fee in there. And then, of course, the enforcement. And Board of Health being one of the enforcing authorities. And then they also have, as the enforcement authority, for any of the regulations, what the first, the second, the third, and subsequent offenses, what those would be.
How do those line up with our typical offense?
I think they're probably
Comparable or?
a little bit on the lower side.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, obviously, there has to be certainly understandable to do warnings,
Mhm.
but you don't want to spend all your time doing warnings or something that's not getting the fee to, if you had to go down that road for enforcement.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, with a lot of education, a lot of discussion and education
Mhm.
about what a possible bylaw is going to be,
Yeah.
that you're not in the enforcement mode, but I think you have to have some sort of outline of what the enforcement would look like, because each and every day we're possibly exposed to having to enforce certain laws.
Mhm.
So I would say those are probably on the lower side.
Mhm.
And then it goes on to deferments, which is also like an exemption. Whether or not the board would want to have an exemption process. So if somebody can't comply with the regulation, you're offering the opportunity to exempt them, knowing that an exemption process is going to have to go through.
Basically, variance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you can imagine how many retail stores
Uh-huh.
that may ask for exemptions, that may be something that would be heavy on the,
Yeah. We'll have to kind of plan on having a few extra meetings the month after the effective date.
right, yeah, I mean, you could certainly identify how you want to
Mhm.
control how many exemptions you
Mhm.
even allow. You know, I think having 3 exemptions, 6 months at a time, that might cause it to go out further, and whether or not the board would want to see that. And I think one of the other things that I think may have changed over time from when it was first introduced, probably about a year and a half or so ago, there's been a lot more cities and towns that have passed
Mhm.
in these type of regulations, so it's not something that people aren't used to seeing.
Sure.
And we have towns that are close by that have already implemented the bans. So I think that it's definitely something that we're seeing more of.
Mhm.
I think that a lot of maybe the towns that may have done it in the beginning might have been closer to the ocean, or
Yeah.
towns that may have had impact with plastic bag going to ocean communities, but now we definitely have a lot of water bodies here. So I think that it's definitely more familiar to see towns that have these bylaws
Yeah.
or regulations, depending on who passes it.
The only thing, again, is that I could see just off the top would be penalties. You know, I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm not saying they should be higher, but just something to think about. And the deferments, so under 6A, the retail establishments are going to have 6 months to come into compliance if and when town meeting approves this. But then they can apply up to 3 times for an additional, so that's 2 years. I would like to at least no more than 2.
Yeah, I agree.
I think 3 is kind of, and the board can kind of look at, you know,
I know, you keep doing it.
I'd push it out as long as I could.
Yeah.
You know, I'd buy a 3-year supply of baggies and say, okay, here we go.
Well, there is going to be, you know, identifying the date of having this go into, so the way this is written, the bylaw would take 6 months, you know, to go into effect.
Right.
There's also a period, if you were even to do 1 deferment, that's a whole year.
Exactly.
Right.
So, you know, like,
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
3 is, from, you know, to your perspective, our perspective, to be having how many, and maybe nobody would bother to go for the deferment. Or we could have 75 retail establishments putting a deferment in every 6 months for a year and a half.
it would be cumbersome
Yeah,
to the board, you know, we know that there's going to be, a period where there's going to be an adjustment that
sure.
bylaw goes into place. We all have to make sure that we're aware of the
Yeah,
establishments that are doing this, and then, you know, how many deferments that we would get as requests, that's an unknown.
right. But again, it looks up to 2 years they can
Can I ask,
not comply.
after review of the various town bylaws, do they all have deferment options in them?
I don't know that they all have, so this is, I think, put in here to maybe make it a little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
And that's why I said to even allow a deferment, I think is already generous.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's why I'm asking, because we have state regs that come down all the time, and sometimes as a whole, they push it off,
Yeah.
which I feel we're doing by allowing 6 months
Right.
before implementation, but very rarely do they allow individual municipalities to then, on top of that, request that our town's not ready. So as a regulation as a whole, that's extremely generous in my opinion, that we would then have, I guess, an unknown number of
Right.
establishments in various stages, because they have a certain time to apply, and then a clock starts ticking, and potentially, we could have 100 different dates that stores start. So I agree, that needs to be looked at more closely. It's not like, this is at 6 months, and then the 50 that apply are going to get another 6 months. It could be you're applying today, and you're applying next week, and you're applying in a month. So the clock
Yeah.
continually can run.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that needs to be looked at
Yeah.
more closely.
I have no idea how much stock retailers will have on these bags. You know, are they generally ordering a 2-year supply at a time? You know, because that was one of the conditions of exemption, is to let them run out of what they have on stock.
And so,
Which- If they can't, you know, are they ordering a year or 2 years worth of baggies at a time?
and so this was on the vote, which so all the establishments are aware. So it was in May. It's going to go on again in September, and if it passed, it could potentially be next May. So we're already looking at a year that I would hope that for their own health and welfare of their particular business, that they put into consideration that it might come to fruition and pass. But I see what you're saying, but I am hoping
I think-
already people are keeping that in mind for last May.
I think allowing them 3 exemptions. I don't know, maybe nobody will take advantage of it, maybe they all will. But you're right too, if one comes one day and another a week later and 27.
Well, we don't have, I mean, there's not a timeline in here that I can see that they
Right.
have to apply for the exemption by.
Right, nobody to the last day. But
I don't
again,
even know
it's-
that that's listed.
No.
It's almost,
Well, they have
you got
6 months.
6 months.
They have 6 months.
But after the 6 months, they're not saying how long.
Right, so I think tightening up that language
Yeah.
to even figure out whether or not we want to allow the deferment, and then how many.
And the length of
I
the,
mean, I
Right,
think
the length.
under an extreme extenuating circumstance, maybe one deferment, but not just carte blanche across, you ask for it, you know.
Right.
There has to be some,
We can, right, we can
Yeah.
offer some language on whether or not,
you know,
whether or not a deferment makes sense, and then what the retailer would have to prove in order to say, geez, I've got, this many bags.
Right.
There is some language, I think, in others to say that you have to show proof that you have that much stock, and then past a certain amount, there's a reasonable period of possibly deferment, but after that, you have to.
I'm just looking at all, the worst case scenario.
Yep.
90% of the establishments are filing requests for deferment. Best case scenario, they all just run with the torch.
Yeah. But,
Our community heroes.
I mean, one of the things that I thought was interesting, I don't want to offer so why are you taking?
yeah, so a lot of the larger retailers are chains and they're located in many different towns. And so what they're finding is when one town has banned it and the other hasn't, they have employees that go across the towns to work. And they were finding it difficult to say, well, this town doesn't, this town does. And they've decided to, Big Y is the most recent one, who has decided to ban in all towns.
Yeah.
So a couple of the food franchises are doing it as well in whether they're using the decomposable cardboard for takeout instead of the styrofoam. And I've noticed that a couple of them, Adobe, I think is one of them, and a couple others have just decided to do it across all of their establishments rather than just the towns that have already had that bylaw in place. So I think as we move forward, a lot more of the bigger retailers are. You might remember, I'm not sure if you were on the board, but Steve, when CVS decided to stop selling cigarettes before
On their own.
on their own, because
Corporate decision.
in other areas, they had already been confronted with that and decided, for our business, it makes sense to do it across the board. So that could happen, because we see a lot more being passed, could happen in more of the larger places we have already. So there are probably several Shaws in some of these towns that already are doing it. I believe they talked about Hudson's not, but Shrewsbury is. So the Shrewsbury Shaws, they're already acclimated to what they need to do, and I'm sure they have people on staff that are determining what towns is going to affect next. So I think it's more of our smaller retailers and establishments that don't have, any knowledge or backing of how this is going to work, that we're going to really need to work with to educate, move in the right direction. So I think the ones that use the most of these single-use bags are probably not going to be the problems that we face.
And then identifying the retail stores, what type of stores are you talking about? You've got stores, stores in the mall, supermarkets, restaurants, how is this going to apply to the different businesses?
Well, again, do you inspect all the auto parts stores?
If they sell food.
If they sell food.
Yeah, but,
But we will need to,
bags, every retailer is, unless you're selling refrigerators, are using bags.
Right, so that's why this could be a lot.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we're staying aware of how this should be implemented, should it move forward. So, there's a lot to it, but obviously having more review and already some comments on that's helpful. So we can bring it to the August meeting and that give you some time to kind of look at it and then be able to provide comment and then maybe having some suggested comments as well, just to see how we think it might work when we do put it in place. If it goes out, it looks like it would go out. That sound acceptable? Yes. Okay. And since this was, since we were focusing on this came up, we would hold off on the tobacco regulations. I know he had said that we would work on that over the summer, but obviously this is on a timeline for September, so we'll focus one at a time. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Move on then to director's items.
Okay. So we have some noise complaints that have come in more recently, and I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that it's not uncommon this time of year. Springtime, summer, people start opening their windows and we're outside. It's something that naturally comes this time of year, but I did want to bring to your attention, we had several animal complaints for roosters. So those have been not just one property, several properties. So we have had to do some site visits, animal control, and Board of Health have gone together to assess, to see the complaints that are coming in. Obviously, we have to investigate and determine whether or not they're valid. So we have responded to that. The town does have a regulation that no roosters are allowed, and we have enforced that in the past. And so I just wanted to let you know that it's something that is active and going on, and we'll probably bring you an update as we move forward for the next meetings. And then we also have our, this is the time of year also for septic and well installations. So a lot of wells going in and septic installation for new systems, for failed systems, people that are upgrading, so that's happening too. We have animal control. Amy does have an update for you for dog licensing and where that's at. And did you want to provide that?
Just a quick update. We're just over 2,100 licensed dogs right now. That still leaves, though, a good amount of unlicensed dogs in town. I've already sent out multiple reminders by email and also most recently postcard reminders to everybody with unlicensed dogs. So we will begin enforcement action on ones that are remaining unlicensed and not in compliance with that. It'll be 2,100 is still a good number, but we want to get as close to 100% compliance as possible.
What percent would that be?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe we probably have about 300 or so that aren't in compliance right now.
Okay.
So it's just, it's helpful to let people know, that they have to license their dog. There are fees in place for licensing. There's also discounts if an animal's spayed or neutered. So obviously we want to encourage people to spay and neuter their animals. And, it's helpful if you stay on top of it. That way, when you go to license, if you haven't licensed before, there's late fees that you have to pay. So Amy does a great job trying to make sure we can get emails for people, email addresses. Somebody has missed it in the past, they call our office and give an email address, she adds them to the database, and they get routine reminders for them before they get late fees.
Just another, one last update, is the board does have an order out from 14 Preston Ave, an order that was updated last October. So I just want to update the board that the owner has come into compliance with the order. Went through several appeal processes, but the appeals were found to be in favor of the town. The owner has shown proof that he's come into compliance with all sections of the order at this time.
Any more word from the neighbors if things quieted down in the neighborhood?
So the order that was issued has been complied with. There were many pieces to that order, as you may
Right,
recall,
I recall.
which included
Yeah.
microchipping,
Yeah.
making sure the dogs were neutered, training, a number of different things. So those items have been checked off. However, we do have other concerns that have come up.
Yeah.
So
As I recall, the whole thing was to try to reduce the conflict within the neighborhood.
Yes.
So as, the calls lessened, have we accomplished anything? I mean, he's in compliance, that's wonderful. And I know he appealed, but that certainly is right. But the whole intention was to create a safe neighborhood.
I'd say that the dog complaints have definitely been reduced.
Wonderful.
We haven't gotten any more complaints that the dogs have gotten loose or off the property, which was a big concern. So at least for the dog portion of it, I think we have seen a significant reduction.
Good.
So the measures that the board had voted through with the recommendations from animal control definitely made a difference.
Thank you.
And you're okay, I don't think animal control has any other updates, right? So you're okay with it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. And so for the Worcester Regional Tobacco Control Collaborative, so I know we didn't have a meeting in June. However, the annual meeting that we had for WRTCC, they did have the annual June meeting. And unfortunately, the grant that allows us to be within the tobacco collaborative, unfortunately, was not renewed. So we have discussed it, and we are current on inspections. So all the inspections were done before the grant actually expired for us as of July 1st. We're no longer part of the collaborative just because they didn't renew for the grant. However, we were fortunate because of all the questions that we had asked in our involvement in the collaborative. We wanted to make sure that we had sustainability and we were checking the right things. So unbeknownst to us before they announced the grant wasn't being renewed, we had asked for some additional education through inspections. And so I feel very happy to say we were able to get Jordan and Eileen to be able to go out and spend some time with the inspector to see what they're looking at when they go out to do their checks. And so that happened, let's see, April or May. So before the June expiration. So I feel very confident to say that we know what to check when we're out there. It's not to say that we wouldn't continue to try to do compliance checks for youths, because I know that's been an area that's been challenging for us in the past with retailers. So going forward, that's something that we may want to hire to have those done. So we're trying to look into some resources where we can continue to, get that service. But as far as when we're going out to do routine inspections for a lot of the food establishments that sell tobacco, those are things that we're looking at as part of what we do. So those things are being looked at, and I feel comfortable knowing that we have that knowledge. So just wanted to let you know about that. Any questions on that? Okay. Solid waste, we have the yard waste was done a little bit differently this year. The yard waste, instead of being picked up on consecutive Saturdays as they had done in the past, they did it as part of the pickup day of your normal pickup day was also the day for yard waste pickup. I know that it's been some time, but I just wanted to let you know that we did look at how that operated and compared it to how we did in the past, and we definitely had less misses doing it this way. So we are hopeful that might be able to continue in the future. We'll have another chance to take a look at it come springtime. I'm sorry, spring, summer, fall. Sorry about that. So that is one of the updates. Also, the solid waste fee increase went into effect for the July billing. So we have had the billing go out. We've had some calls and taken a look at some total changes. There have been some requests to go from large toters to small, approximately about 20 or so. So there's the update on that. And the plastic bag referendum, obviously, that's something that we've discussed. And then we did also a Recycle Smart mailer. Hopefully you got something in the mail. The mailer is we were able to get this mailer done with grant money that we received from the state, so it didn't cost the town anything to send it. And so what that is it was a postcard mailer that went out, and it had a little magnet on it. I'm sorry, I should have brought one with me. But it identifies the state's general identification of what recycling is acceptable and what's not. So they went with basically back to basics. And they have 4 categories, and they identified 4 categories of what's allowed in the container, and then all of the prohibitions, what you shouldn't put in the container. Obviously, one of them, the biggest one is the plastic bags. We see that, plastic film. People want to recycle hoses. Those things are tanglers, they call them. Get stuck in the recycling equipment at Casella. So that recycling mailer hopefully helps us going forward to be able to ramp up education. So we're trying different ways to reach the public, and trying to utilize grant money when we can. So Eileen and Jordan and now Colleen are out in the community and be able to provide education when we see something that people need help. They're possibly not following the rules or regulations. Why are they not doing that? Is the toner broken? Does it not have a lid on it? Do they not know the right things to put in it? So we're trying to get that messaging out. So if you got the mailer, I'm thrilled. that means it worked. Central Mass Mosquito Control, we are in the program. They are doing their routine work, and they have the request if somebody wants any sort of spray or not spraying. That information is on the website. The emergency preparedness, the Region 2 update. Eileen has been attending those meetings regularly. And we had a recent meeting, do you want to just,
The recent meeting was, they have an HMCC, which is, they're trying to integrate the emergency preparedness from the hospitals, institutions, and the municipalities together. So they brought us all together and did some roundtable exercises on how different emergencies were rated by different types of institutions, hospitals, towns, senior centers, and we haven't gotten the results yet, but we all kind of listed what the priorities would be and how we could interact together to help. So we're waiting for that documentation. And then the next one they did was they had a great speaker come in from the Cape and talk about closed pods on how you could, as a town, help your assisted livings and or nursing homes with closed pod emergency situations. We as a town could go to them and treat them individually if we were to have a mass emergency where people, residences could come to us, but we could go to them. And so we just are in the process of looking at Life Gear as a start to see if that would be, a good connection between the town and Life Gear. And Region 2 is promoting it and actually has some of their contracted workers working on language and different contracts that will need to be signed. So they're really proactive in how everyone can join together to kind of increase how our emergency preparedness can be delivered if we ever were to. I mean, hopefully we never will, but if we ever were to, we're no longer isolated, on our own. And now it's not just towns, they're starting to spread it out to everyone in the community, everyone that may be involved. So they've really had some interesting work groups this year.
One of the things that I think I have you also just verify is just making sure that you are comfortable with myself or Eileen being able to be the representative for the town. So we usually go through and you do your normal vote to authorize us as agents of the board to be able to vote at these meetings.
I'll make a motion to appoint Darlene as our agents of the local emergency planning committee.
Yes, yep, Region 2, emergency.
Region 2.
Yeah, last public health motion. Second motion. Awesome, thank you. And just updates on paperwork to make sure that you're comfortable with us going through those. And then the flu season, we've already placed our vaccine order, so we don't have any update on that. But actually, we typically have those, we were talking about flu already, but the flu clinics, we typically are looking at October and November. I'm not sure. Check with Dallas. Question.
Even years, right? Not that even years.
Yeah, the election year, so I think we have
Anyway, if that's the share.
Presidential election, I think is next year.
Yeah. But we did vote with Vax this past And it was very successful, and we
Yes, it
actually were right
was.
down to the wire with the last needle.
Good.
So if there's any sort of primary improvement, and we have the vaccine, we'll definitely,
But it is good to note that because we would definitely want more vaccine as a primary.
And obviously the 2020 presidential election. So,
I think, yes, so we'll keep that in mind, it's a great point. Office update, already introduced Colleen. And then communicable disease, we'll bring the report to next meeting. We don't have the report in post. And then inspections.
For the first 6 months for our inspections, we don't have an exact figure, but we're over 80%. We've had some establishments that have closed, so although they're on our list, they, get included in our percentages. They're temporarily closed, so Jordan made a good point. They're still permitted because a couple of them are, one person's going through renovations, one establishment that holds 2 permits had the fire. So we've got a few that for various reasons aren't open, so they need to be backed out. We've got temporaries that get included in some numbers and not others, so they really aren't part of our actual work. But we're up over 80%. Jordan has been like banging down the doors to get everything done and has done a great job. And we see that in the amount of complaints we get. So when we come to nuisances, we rarely have it, we have a definite decrease in how many complaints we're getting called out on for nuisances. Now emergencies, totally separate. This year, I think that in the 5 years I've been here, this year has already heightened, and we're only at June, for the fires, the smoke alarms, the gas leak today, the grease trap issues, things that,
we had, what, 2 establishments today or yesterday?
2 today.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 today, and then Darlene had one 2 weeks ago at Applebee's, and we've had 2 at Pub 99. We've had 2 different establishments with some grease, 3 with some grease trap issues. They eat up a lot of our time because we have to go out with emergency, decide if we need to close. If we do need to close, we need to reopen and clear, and then typically that you're there, so you do a cursory inspection, which always requires a follow-up. It's just for the nature that you're there. There's going to be some violations. So we've seen quite an uptick in that, and it's really, it takes up a lot of time. We've had a couple, issues with restaurants on Cheryl's reports that we have to look into for foodborne illness and different types of diseases.
Would you consider that as part of a nuisance?
I would consider it more like an emergency. So if there was a Hefe outbreak or a foodborne illness outbreak,
Right.
I would consider that more of an emergency versus just a
Well,
typical.
definitely in the priority that you're
Yeah.
approaching it,
The
definitely.
nuisance calls that we're not getting anymore are, I went into this restaurant and it's really dirty, I went into this restaurant and they're not doing this, or do you know that, this is broken? Jordan's catching all of them on her regular routine, and she's very thorough, and she has a very nice way about her when she's talking to them that they're starting to understand the education is really, moving its way from us to them, and she has a nice way of making that loop, and we just have seen, when I go through the numbers and the complaints that we have, in the food side, they're much smaller, but the unknown emergency side that no one can predict,
You really
is-
can't. you
that's
really
off the
can't-
charts,
you can't-
right?
You can't prepare for that. Oh, obviously, fire suppression and,
Yeah,
everything else like the 2 incidences today.
nothing
You
you can
can't,
do.
train, you can't, but as far as those nuisance calls, kudos to you guys.
Yeah. So when
Because
you
you're
look,
doing the job,
yeah,
you're getting the restaurant managers, owners all together. And you're getting things to happen. And kudos to them too for working with you.
They're calling us when they need to, when they make changes, and so when you look at the numbers, I was surprised because I saw complaints shrunk, and then I saw their numbers, and then I went to emergencies last. And saw, you forget, as time goes on, and you look at it as a whole for 6 months, and then you start saying, wow, we were out there a lot. We're getting to know the fire department, and work with us. But, yeah, it's been...
Swing by my house on the way to the scene, we'll take care of that.
For new establishments, we have, one restaurant has put in a site plan, Domino's Pizza, in the plaza, over in the GMX Plaza. They have submitted their site plan to determine if that's going to be a good spot for them. For right now, that's the only one that we're covering. Oh, there's some remodels going on, but for a new establishment, that's the only one. And renewals, it's not this time of year for renewals, so I think that's it.
And just to also let you know, part of the process of being able to address and staying current is having ample staff and people that can handle. So Jordan and Eileen work very well together, and Jordan has seen so much in the past year and a half, and sometimes just haven't been exposed to it, but now as emergencies happen and as different things happen at restaurants that sometimes we haven't seen, go through it, and you have that experience, so it makes it a little bit easier to do the job. So having enough staff and being able to, being able to have the time to address, to educate, to make sure we're doing compliance inspections. So you're doing a great job. So I just wanted to let you know, something that the board has been very supportive of in the past, and we didn't always have enough staff. So we appreciate the support because now it helps us get the job done. So thank you to my staff. All right, so we have for August, definitely going to meet in August. As in the past, we send out a connection, by email to see what the board's dates are easiest. If you have any dates you want me to jot them down, that's fine, or we can have what Paula normally does to kind of coordinate us. The only thing I just want to let you know, we do have, there's several things that may cause us to have a heavy meeting, so we may want to consider having two. We're getting a smaller agenda for each meeting, but at least one.
Any Monday the 5th.
Okay,
So the regular meetings, the second and fourth meeting,
okay.
as with the third, that's just Mondays.
Okay.
And send Paula, she would ask me.
Oh, beautiful.
Email.
Oh, already,
Already sent her.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Do you remember what they were? No?
Okay.
That's okay.
All right, so I will have, I'll have her try to get something out by the end of this week, and we'll see if we can coordinate at least the August date, because I know we already have things coming up.
And I know, well, I will tell you that I think I told her the 26th wasn't good, but I could actually, if we need to use the 26th of August,
Okay.
it's a Monday.
Okay.
The fourth Monday, isn't that usually when we have?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
second and the fourth is what we usually, I have as a
Right.
standing date.
I could rearrange that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We will get something out, and then we will move forward for the August. All right? All right, thank you. Any other questions for any of us?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Second motion. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Margaret. Good night.